Thank you for joining us, everyone. Please join us for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please let the record indicate that David Braun, attorney, is joining us via Zoom, as well as board member Patrick Phipps. Section 2, approval of agenda. I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda 817, please.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Section 3, communication. Opportunities to address the school board concerning an agenda topic. Jen, do we have some?
Yes. Our family has selected the virtual option. I don't believe I've heard the answer tonight, nor did I receive a response from a previous email to the district, but forgive me if I missed something. If the district starts out 100% virtual and then returns to the hybrid plan mid-semester, what happens to the students who had originally selected virtual only? Basically, does starting out 100% virtual take away the option to remain virtual for the entire semester, or will the district be committing all students to be virtual for the entire semester? The way I see it, the district needs to continue their previous plan, having a schedule for hybrid and a schedule for virtual. The hybrid schedule could ebb and flow, but the virtual schedule would remain virtual one semester at a time. The district had already indicated that most virtual classes would be covered by BCSD teachers, so the only change is the in-person teachers would have to conduct virtual classes. No real change to the master schedule. Dear Ball-Chatham School Board, I realize we are in a situation in which no one is going to be happy with the board's decision. However, I must say that I'm appalled after viewing the board meeting on August 16th. I've come to realize that the school does not have the appropriate staffing to conduct both a virtual plan and a blended plan, and you are trying to hide that within the disguise of safety issues. The concept of transparency came up many times last night, but there was no true transparency. Numerous times, staffing at the high school came up as a legitimate issue, and the students learning remotely at the high school level were being put at a disadvantage compared to their in-person counterparts. Then when pressed about that being the real issue, was told that the real issue was safety and the continuity of learning for students. I do believe this may be a piece of the issue, but it seems that the biggest focus on this push to remote learning is due to the lack of staff for some of the specialty classes that the high school had in the original plan. Had the original plan been upheld where Ingenuity was going to provide all remote classes, this would not be an issue either. So please do not insult our intelligence by hiding the problems under the disguise of safety. If the real issue was safety and continuity of learning, then no students would be allowed on the school grounds for any reason, similar to what happened in March. Students were not allowed to pick up supplies, do extracurricular activities, etc. Supplies needed by the students were delivered without contact to the student's porch. The goal is to keep COVID positive cases down, then students should have an abbreviated meet the teacher night, extracurricular activities, etc. When someone intends an extracurricular activity, we are still exposing each other and increasing the possibility of increased COVID cases, similar to being in a classroom. I think it's going to be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to explain to my children why it's okay for them to attend meet the teacher night, baseball practice, or track practice, but are not allowed to attend school, which is the main purpose of school in the first place. I think you need to be honest with the board and the parents. From an outside perspective, it looks like there were 2 plans offered, but only one plan, remote, actually put into action. Now, in the final hour, you want to force the hand of everyone to switch to the remote plan. From what I can tell from the meeting, the biggest issue with the 2 options of the current return to learn plan is at the high school level. So let's propose this. Let the high school operate with a remote plan and keep both remote and blended options for K-8. Studies have repeatedly shown that high school students can perform relatively well in a remote environment, whereas children in K-5 really struggle with a remote learning environment. Why must we do a one-size-fits-all? To whom it may concern, I'm a parent of a freshman and senior at JHS. I was rather disheartened while watching the school board meeting last Friday night. First of all, if Riverton, SHG, Burton, and many other school districts can try out a hybrid learning, so can the Ball-Chatham Public Schools. Whether this is a political move by the governor or not, it is your job to stand up to him and protect our children. Since COVID-19 has hit my daughter, has had to have counseling due to the fact that she is having no social interaction at all. Not only has my son had to mourn 2 friends, now he is at risk for losing his senior football season his senior year. Last year, when the kids had to do remote learning, my son's grades suffered immensely. He has ADHD, and remote instruction is very destructive to his learning. My child himself said several times in tears, I am going to be so behind when I go to college. I want to go back to school. I was extremely taken aback when an OBGYN was allowed to present why my child should not go back to school. I don't care if he is on a COVID-19 task force or not. I know for a fact that the information he was giving to the board about testing turnaround times was 100% incorrect. I deal with COVID-19 testing, and I assure you, the longest I've ever had to wait for results was 7 days. My own child was tested, and we had results in less than 48 hours, and that was 3 weeks ago. Why wouldn't a pediatrician be allowed to present to weigh out both sides? Last night, it was said over and over again that if the kids went back to school today, the schools would be in compliance with the recommendations, which is the only recommendation and not an executive order. I am a single mother. I have to work full time. So how are my kids expected to be successful in school when they will 100% be doing their schooling alone, as I cannot afford to stay home, nor can I afford to hire a tutor to sit with them daily to proctor their schooling. I pay a lot of money in taxes to live in a school district that is supposed to be one of the best, and right now it seems to be completely opposite. Our parental rights have been taken away, and now we have no choice as to what is best for our children. I am begging the school board not to fail our children like the state of Illinois and our governor have. I fear that if our children are kept out of school, what will happen to their mental well-being? The kids who are doing remote learning have the choice to take that choice away. To send our kids to school is unconstitutional and illegal. Please be the advocate I know you can be for the children of the Ball-Chatham School District. School board, thank you for all of your hard work during this difficult time. After watching the very informative meeting last night, I believe one important topic did not get discussed nearly enough. That is the subject of live in-person instruction versus pre-recorded learning sessions. I do not mean to debate about which one is more effective, rather a discussion regarding which type of learning we will be subjected to if we decide to go full remote. To illustrate, let me describe my situation. My oldest son is going into 3rd grade at CES. We chose the hybrid learning option, and we are currently in the morning time slot. He is currently signed up to attend the Why Not daycare program. If the board goes to full remote, we will need to be logged into his computer in the morning for a 3 to 4 hour live person instruction from his teacher. If so, how can this ever be accomplished in a household where both parents work full time? Even if we assume the Why Not organization is going to set up tables for everyone's computer and have quiet time to study, we know the organization likely cannot handle 50 different kids streaming video on one Wi-Fi network. On the other hand, if lectures are pre-recorded, he can watch them after daycare is over. How can we expect him to be engaged in learning after a full day of playing with his friends? Is he expected to go to daycare from 7:30 to 5:30, then come home and watch a 3-hour lecture from his teacher and do homework? In the return to school plan, the remote option states that students will be subject to some synchronous and asynchronous learning, but the daily attendance will be taken. How can attendance be taken if my child is at a daycare all day? As parents, we need very specific details on this very soon. The State Board of Education and Department of Public Health have purposefully imposed impossible restrictions on school districts. They are effectively telling you to go full remote without actually putting it on paper. Don't be surprised that that's what cowards do. I encourage you to be courageous, as past school boards have been. Please do not vote to go full remote and put parents of small children in an impossible situation. You were elected to the board because your constituents believe you were competent enough to make most decisions for them. This, however, is a decision that should be put to the vote of the people. And luckily, thanks to your return to school survey, the people have already spoken. Now it is up to you to take action based on their vote, not on your own personal opinion. Good afternoon. I want to thank you for taking the time last evening to explain the reasoning behind starting the school year with remote learning versus starting with a hybrid school day. I know it's been a difficult task, and I appreciate the amount of time and consideration that has gone into the board's decision. The working parents of another family in the district with younger children have asked my daughter, who attends GHS, to assist their children with online learning for several hours a day so that parents can get some of their own work done. My daughter would love to help, but doesn't want to make the commitment without knowing what her school day will be structured, how her school day will be structured. If she will be required to attend live Zoom meetings during the hours that she's been requested to assist, she'd like to notify the other parents now so that they have as much time as possible to make other arrangements. Can you please provide some detail on what a typical school day for each school, elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school will look like during this evening's meeting? I think it will be helpful to those parents now trying to make arrangements for their own children before school starts.
Hey, Jen, this is Pat. Sorry to interrupt, but just for the benefit of the folks watching online, can you just give us an estimate of how many comments we have tonight, just so that they can kind of plan accordingly?
I have 5 more to read.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unless I'm supposed to read this one, it just came. Okay, so 5, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
Dear board members, what if we put as much anger, resentment, disappointment, and expectation on businesses and employers as we do on our own schools and teachers? Instead of consistently putting the onus only on our schools to come up with plans to get us through this unprecedented crisis, what if we equally demanded that our employers take responsibility to help their employees through it all? I've been on both sides. I've been a working mom with an extremely demanding job, juggling working and raising 3 children, and I'm now a stay-at-home mom with an also extremely demanding job of ensuring the health, safety, emotional, mental, and physical well-being of my children through a pandemic, while also helping to make sure my husband has the space, quiet, necessity he needs in order to productively do his job from home. I understand the range of difficulties for those working outside of the home and those working inside of the home, and I feel for everyone. The fear of not being able to provide for your family is gut-wrenching. What we are experiencing as a community, as a country, as an entire world is unlike any other. For some reason, though, our expectations of what schools and teachers should provide our children has become mind-boggling, unrealistic, unfair, and just plain wrong. As a whole, we have become so used to demanding so much of our teachers in general that we are now so flippantly demanding that they put their own lives and the lives of their families at risk because we need our kids back in the building. Why are we not demanding the same of our employers? Why are we not demanding that they provide child care assistance? Why are we not demanding that they shorten their workday? Why are we not demanding that they allow employees to work normal hours as long as they are getting their job done? Why are we not demanding that they help their workforce through what we can only hope is a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic? The onus is not only on our schools, the onus is on all of us. Dear members of the board, I watched the entire board meeting last night, and there are 2 things that completely concern me. The first is that some grown adults could not keep their masks on, and they seem to be the ones who are most adamant about going in person. If they cannot keep their masks on for a 4-hour meeting, how can we expect little kids to do so on the bus and at school for a total of around the same time? I was very upset in seeing this. Secondly, the fact that teachers had to go to school today to plan without knowing what they were planning for is really upsetting. The teachers deserve to know how to plan. I understand this is difficult. However, please listen to the experts and form a decision. Thank you. I'm extremely disappointed that the board cannot come together and decide on the issue of whether or not it's safe to reopen schools. Time is being wasted debating the importance of in-person instruction and individual scheduling when we're in a region with increasing rates of transmission and positivity, and we are still without a decision from this board. This decision should have been made sooner so that academic planning could have been prepared for the school year. Instead, we have delayed the start of school year, and teachers are being asked to have contingency plans that would have been unnecessary if decisions were made sooner. I'm unsure what needs to be further thought over at this time. Stop bickering, stop playing politics, and listen to the science. This is a pandemic, and it is a public health and safety issue. Keep our community safe. Idle threats to cut teacher salaries and positions if the year starts remotely is not the way a board needs to operate when dealing with a virus that doesn't care about the toll on all humanity. Make a decision based on science and facts, not political and personal opinions. Delaying a vote comes across as a board is skewing responsibilities to the community. I can't see. This is hard. One more. Dear board, thank you all for your consideration of the facts as it relates to the return to learn plan. I'd like to point out a couple of things that may impact your ultimate decision. I listened to the entire discussion last night, and more than once, people who wrote in and board members made a blanket statement about the fact that 75% of the people opted for the hybrid model, and that means that we all want to return to school. I would disagree with that statement. My family indicated that we wanted hybrid. Our decision was based on the fact that we were not convinced that the virtual model would be able to provide the same level of education as the hybrid model would. This was especially important to us as my daughter is a senior, will be taking AP Physics and will be studying science in college. Now that the single symptom exclusion is in place, I am concerned that our education in a hybrid model would be disrupted regularly for symptoms that appear COVID-like. That changes the dynamic for us, as I'm sure it does other families. If you could offer the same caliber of education virtually as they would get in person, that would be a far better choice for us. 2, I was disheartened to hear a few things that came out of the discussion, but the most disturbing to me was the comment that we should just let the chips fall where they may. These are people's lives we were talking about. To use gambling reference was inappropriate and offensive. I may have opted for a hybrid model for my daughter, and that may indeed be the best option for her should you reopen schools, but that doesn't mean that I want you to gamble with her life as an at-risk child, nor mine as an immunocompromised parent, or her teachers or their families. 3, review the video and look at how many times adults in the room remove their masks to speak. If the children in the classroom did that, you would not be following the state-issued guidelines. As right now, it appears to be imperative that if you open, you should follow all these guidelines to protect the most vulnerable. The bottom line is that things have changed between when you made the plan and now. That is irrefutable. I fear that some of the board members have drawn a line in the sand that needs to shift based on the new information and new statistics, which they don't appear to be paying attention to, like increased positivity rates. This is not a popularity contest. We don't need to bend on the limb of parents who may be ill-informed. The parents that wrote in about not being able to miss work clearly didn't account for the fact that under the hybrid model, there would be more inconsistency and potential for missing work than before. I empathize with parents of younger children, but I don't see how the hybrid model in our current health climate resolves their concerns. That's it. That's the last one.
David and Patrick, I just want to make sure you guys both can hear me. Just give me a thumbs up if you both can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you guys. Section 4, revised return to learn plan. Is there any discussion or any comments that any board member would like to make at this time?
I have asked, I just have a comment that doesn't require discussion, but clearly after tonight's vote, I think parents are really begging for or requesting desperately, I guess, more detailed information. So I know that it will take time, but I'm sure that's on your agenda to get information out as quickly as possible. Jen?
I also have a question. If a teacher has a risk factor, they have a choice to offer online course, or they are forced to come to the building if suppose that is the thing.
If our teachers have a medical issue,
Yeah,
so all of our teachers have the ability to request an accommodation under the FFCRA. So that could be for medical reasons, or that could be for other reasons. So we do have several teachers that are going to be operating with accommodations this school year.
perfect.
Brandon,
I have comments, but I'll make it at the time I vote, if that's okay.
that's fine with me. Would anyone else like to comment at this moment?
Mr. President, I do have a comment.
Pat?
Yes, thank you. So after careful consideration of all comments, concerns, and advice I have received, I continue to support the hybrid model the board passed in July. 2 simple facts have played a large part in my decision. First, the return to school guidelines issued by the Department of Public Health and State Board of Education permit returning to in-person instruction, so long as certain guidelines are followed. The plan we passed in July meets these guidelines and will be closely followed. As indicated at last night's meeting, nothing has changed regarding those return to school guidelines or our ability to meet them. Second, approximately 3/4 of the families in this district, including my own, selected the in-person hybrid model. I'm not inclined to overrule the decision made by a predominant majority of our district's families, especially if our plan also offers an all virtual option for those families who prefer not to return to the classroom at this time. Some other schools in Illinois and the surrounding area are returning to in-class instruction, and I feel as if I'd be doing the students of this district a disservice if I did not give it our best shot to give them the same opportunity. So therefore, I'm not supporting the recommendation to switch to an all virtual model. Thank you.
Just for the sake of clarity, section 4, the revised return to learn plan is referencing a 100% virtual model. Again, so a vote of yes means that you are voting for a 100% virtual model. A vote of no indicates that you are voting to retain our current hybrid, blended, as well as virtual option. With that being said, I need a motion to approve the 100% virtual only option return to learn plan.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Jen, will you roll call the vote,
I
please?
am sure would. Phipps,
No,
Juraj,
Can I have some comments here?
If you would like.
As many of you might know, I'm a microbiologist professor, but most importantly, I'm a parent. The safety of the children and their families is the biggest priority, but it is just as important that we meet the needs of our community as well. The hybrid model allows families to make a choice when it comes to whether or not they want their children back in school. After looking at the registration data, we know that 75% of the families opted for hybrid model learning, and also approximately 75 emails read yesterday. Predominantly, I think approximately 70 of that email supported hybrid learning. As a microbiologist, I know that going completely virtual would help in controlling transmission rates, but as a member of the school board, I have to respect the view of or the thinking of the community. So many parents do not have the luxury of staying home with their children, or they are not able to provide all the resources for a complete virtual learning experience. So I would like to say no.
Maddox,
We currently have a board-approved plan in place that follows all necessary ISB and IDPH guidelines for the safety of our children. It also gives them the much-needed opportunity for in-person learning that the majority of the Ball-Chatham School District families also desire, while even also offering the virtual option to those who aren't yet comfortable with this course of action. I believe we owe it to our students and our families to give this plan our absolute best effort, despite the concern over sustainability. That being said, keep in mind that to have any chance at success with this plan, everyone must do their absolute best to follow all guidelines set in place, no matter how crazy we may feel they are. Over the course of our discussions with the administration since March, we've been repeatedly assured no matter which option was chosen by our district, a switch to all in-person or 100% remote could be done without much organizational discomfort. The board has also expressed the necessity to have all three options fully developed, as our situations have been in constant flux. So our district needs to be flexible and prepared. Might our situation change in just a few weeks? Perhaps. But changes have been almost a daily occurrence in our community since March. With an approved plan already in place that is in complete compliance with those previously mentioned guidelines from ISBE and IDPH, I also feel it is inappropriate for me to have any part in stripping our district parents of their right to choose which avenue they would like to pursue with regard to their child's education in this situation. It is for this reason I vote no.
Barry,
For the record, I'm an attorney and I do public hearings, and during those hearings, I remove my mask. I'm doing so now because this is a public proceeding and I want to make sure people can hear me. I'm told that last night the audio wasn't that great, and in the public hearings I participate in as a lawyer, I remove my mask when I'm speaking. I've been wearing a mask consistently and religiously since this pandemic began. So I think that while it is true that the IDPH, the new guidelines that were issued last week that are the plan we approved in July is consistent with those to allow us to begin the plan. I don't think the analysis should end there. I think that those who have spoken so far have ended their analysis there. I think it's true that in the first minute, perhaps when the kids come back to school, that we'll be in compliance with that. I, however, can't in good conscience vote for a plan to implement a plan that I think will not be operational due to those rules. I think the rules are a big intervening factor between July 22nd and now, because I just don't think that it's going to be possible to operate under those restrictions. The second thing I'll point out is that as a lawyer, I'm concerned about the liability issues associated with going back in light of the other intervening factor, which is a near doubling of the infection rates in this area and in the county. There are consequences in just giving it a shot. I mean, there are potential legal consequences, and as the attorney for the board last night said, our insurance coverage, because I don't think it's provided by the market, does not cover communicable diseases. I think what we should do instead is adopt this alternative. I think that gives us a better opportunity to send the kids back at a time, when there's more testing available, which is a big problem locally here. And I think I would like to see us wait and see if we can send the kids back at a time when we can keep them there. Because I hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe that this plan during its implementation phase is going to allow us to keep the kids in school for very long. So for those reasons, I'm voting for the plan as presented and recommended, again, because I'm just afraid that it can't be implemented given the new guidelines.
So are you voting yes on the recommendation for all virtual then?
Yes, I'm voting yes on the recommendation. That's why I said I'm voting for the recommendation.
Okay, great.
Worley.
I wanted to make a short statement. I personally asked for a delay last night because undoubtedly this is the most important decision I've made in my 7 years as a board member. I wanted to take the time and effort to review everything that had come before me. I needed 24 hours to do so. Therefore, I do not want anyone to interpret that I, as a board member, am eschewing my community responsibilities. I am not. My track record and my decision-making over the last 7 years proves that statement to be true. After reviewing all the materials, I vote to start the school year remotely.
Bryant.
I'm not going to make a long speech. We've already talked about it for about 11 hours between two school board meetings. I've weighed all the options. I've listened. I understand the governor put out new guidelines through ISB and Department of Public Health. We started the plan. We voted on a plan, and I think we should stick to that plan. Parents have to do their part as well. If their child is sick, they look like they're sick, keep them home. It'll avoid the quarantine that will encompass them sending them to school if they think they're sick and just want to go to work. We all have to do our part. For that reason, I vote no.
Brewer.
No. Motion fails. Section 5, communications. Any other emails on any items non-gender related? Need a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
Make a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, guys.
Are we clear, Brad?
Are we still on?